Welcome to the Power Factor Show. Episode 151. Sponsored by Rainier Ballistics, Hodgdon Powders, and JPL Precision.
Hi, welcome to Power Factor. I'm Larry, and we've got Robin Taylor in this week from Taylor Freelance. So, Robin, tell us about Taylor Freelance.
Wow, Taylor Freelance has been my hobby business for 20 years now.
20 years.
20 years.
Wow, I was going to ask you when you started.
I think it was 1992.
Okay.
At this point, I actually would have to go look.
You have to go look it up. It's been so long.
Dig out some old issues. If you guys have got old issues of Front Sight, if you go way back in there, you'll find an ad for Seattle Slug that's way
exactly. I've been involved in USPSA for 12 years now, and I know right from the very first issue, Taylor Freelance has been in there. So I've known about you for a long time, and was excited to meet you when I moved to Washington, and that was 10 years ago. Shoot. So so you've been making base pads and firearm accessories basically for a long time.
For a long time.
And it started with the Seattle Slug. Yep. If you guys are familiar with that, this is the guy, Seattle Slug. So tell us what was the I guess brainchild behind the Seattle Slug? Yeah, right.
Yep. I was shooting for the University of Washington, or I had just stopped shooting for the University of Washington when I started shooting IPSC.
Okay.
Shooting for the UW on their first their rifle team and then their pistol team, I got exposed to bowling pin shooting.
Okay. Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Bowling pins was a major kick in the butt. And I can remember a guy there while I was shooting pins had been to an IPSC match the previous weekend, and he showed me the printed match booklet for the club match that weekend. Okay. So back in the day, we had printed match books for club matches.
Wow.
And it showed it showed a picture of a rope wheel or a cable wheel that you shot over you shot over this box and you ran over and shot under the cable wheel and this kind of stuff, and that was amazing. And I can remember actually looking at it and said, "You really do this? You really do this with real guns?" I was just thrilled. I had to go do it. Anyway, I got sucked into that world, and I ended up shooting a Glock 22, a box stock Glock 22, back when there were no accessories available for the Glock 22.
Yeah.
At 175 power factor, shooting Tom Cattell's, Tomboy's bullets at about 1050. So I'm making about 184 power factor or something like that.
Right on.
Just pounding the snot out of myself with a Glock 22.
Of course.
And I found I could shoot that gun for about 60 rounds, 60 or 70 rounds, and then my hands would shake so bad that I'd start to pull the trigger and they'd start doing this, involuntarily every time I put the gun out. So put the gun down, shoot a 22 for a while, pick the gun back up, shoot it. It was really a pain, but it's what I had and I loved it. So I'm at a match one day and a guy comes up to me with a baggie, literally a Ziploc bag full of heel weights that he'd made by punching out the sand or something and pouring molten brass.
Okay. Yeah.
And so they're dead flat, really lumpy, this kind of stuff. But it was something. It was something to make the gun heavier.
Okay. Add some weight.
So I bought one. Other buddies of mine bought one, and we screwed them into our guns. And well, this is better, but it still sucks because without some changes, that actually made the problems of the Glock worse.
How's that?
Well, the Glock has this big open void.
Right behind.
I think we've got a 19 here. Here's a 19.
Yep.
Excuse me, everybody. Make sure this is empty. Well, if you look in there, that's a big giant hole.
Well, normally there is,
right? Oh, and he's got it filled up with one of these brand new plastic plugs, which actually came on quite a bit after we started making Seattle Slugs.
Right.
Let's see if I've got
You got a punch?
Armor's tool. Yeah.
Okay.
Big hole, all right? Hopefully you can see that. Turn it to the light a little bit. What happens with that big hole is not so much the hole isn't the problem, it's the little shelf right there.
Right.
When you go to speed load a Glock magazine in there, if I can find a Glock mag, without any ammo in it, it's fine, but that top round will usually have a rim that sits right here.
Yep.
And on the 40, it's a pretty big rim. The 9mm is not so bad, but the 40 will come in there and go and lock right there and absolutely stop the mag.
Cutout, yeah.
In that little cutout.
Sure.
So that was the the first modification I did was start pouring Bondo and epoxies and other stuff in there in order to make a little shelf to keep that from happening.
Okay.
So that's where the Seattle Slug essentially came from.
Gotcha.
It was that original lumpy, ugly heel weight that a dude sold me at a match. And none of us did anything with it because I think the guy actually went to work for Glock.
Is that right?
Yeah, and disappeared out of the Northwest section.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
So a couple years went by and went, well, heck, somebody's got to do something with that.
Okay. Get some weight and then make a little ramp out of it.
Make a little ramp out of it. Make a little flare on the end so that it, I can carry it and it'll still work with factory magazines. And that's one of the big things with Seattle Slugs.
Sure.
Is that they work with a factory mag.
Right. Most mag wells you put on the gun, the factory mags are recessed so far you have to seat them with your thumb.
Sure.
You can't just smack them in there. So
the other thing that's interesting about Glocks, excuse me while I take this one apart, is that this part of the gun weighs almost nothing.
Sure. It's
on a Glock 17.
2-3 ounces?
5.5.
Is it 5? Okay.
That's 5.5 ounces right there, which is kind of you and the bullet, and the physics of that are not in your favor. Well, the Seattle Slug takes that gap I was telling you about and fills it with brass from here all the way up into here, plus a little shovel shape that sticks out on the end. And I'll bring one of those up here in the camera in just a second. Here's one installed on Larry's gun. If you can see that. But it sticks all the way out to there, and we've got a piece of brass that's that long. As a result, we're taking 5.5 ounces and turning it into 9 ounces. So you're changing your non-reciprocating mass on the gun by about 70%.
Shifting that center of gravity back into your hand.
And down.
Right, and down low. Right.
So once you have it installed, you can pretty well hold the gun like the center of gravity moves from way out in the slide to back in right on the trigger hinge pin.
Right.
And dramatically changes the way the gun performs. So anyway, that was our first project. Kind of a long testimonial on how it worked. But I can remember I was living when we started coming up with that, I was living in a rented house in Ballard. And we were trying to come up with what are we going to call this thing. And if you take one out and lay it on the table, it looks unfortunate, shall I say. The best thing it looks like is a slug, like a banana slug, because they were all shiny brass back then.
Right, they're yellow.
Yeah, bright yellow banana slug.
Very slug shaped.
So we decided to call it the Seattle Slug. So I was living in Seattle and it looks like a slug, so it's a Seattle Slug.
Excellent. And it's known the world over as Seattle Slug, right?
So King County Sheriff uses them. People use them all over the place.
Great. And that was that? Did you make the mold? Did you design?
I had the mold made. Basically, it was one of those original, ugly sand built ones with epoxy all over it that I took into a mold shop. And said, okay, this is what I want. How much is this going to cost me to have made?
Okay. And it's just open mold, just pour brass right on the top of it.
It's the original mold was a sand casting mold. Okay. So they built
like a wooden template.
A wooden template of it, which had multiple cavities on it.
I'm familiar with the process.
Pound of sand. All it's a great technology if you're making anchors. Cannons, really crude objects like that. It's not a great technology for making gun parts because there's just way too much.
And then there's some machining to be done, and after that.
So I got to know a lot of bench grinders really well.
Oh, I'm sure.
Have a bunch of drill presses and things in my garage from working on that sort of stuff.
And then it's attached through the hole in the back, right? Yep. So you've got the lanyard hole, which was what it was intended for, but so you've got the Seattle Slug is threaded, drilled and tapped. Yep. Put a screw in there and it won't fall out.
Yeah, basically it's a press fit thing. It should come up and squish into place just a little bit, and that when it squishes into place, you can look down through the lanyard loophole and see the set screw.
Right.
You reach inside, back the set screw out by a couple of turns, and you're done.
Oh, okay.
You should never have to touch it.
Oh, okay, gotcha. So it doesn't even have a head on the screw.
No, you can't even feel it.
You back it out. Oh, nice, cool. Very cool. So, and that's where it began.
That's where it began.
Then what?
Well, the next product after that was I was shooting back in the day. The Glock guys used to really be sort of a clique.
Sure, I could imagine.
We were the guys that were rolling up to race in the local match.
Right, in a 1911 game.
We were shooting a 1911 game with Glocks.
Right.
And, after having set down my revolver to go do that. And it's a bit like if you were showing up to drag race and you're the guy that shows up in a Subaru.
Right.
Today, I guess that's cool.
Right.
But back in the day, if you showed up in a Subaru,
if you had anything other than a Mustang,
or something, there weren't many of you strange people that decided to come and run a Volvo.
Right. What is this newfangled technology?
We don't do that around here. So we all kind of knew who each other was. We were always kind of curious who the best guy with a Glock was that weekend, because there was only 4 of us in the match.
Okay.
Anyway, I was running with Bruce Bennett. I don't know if you know Bruce. You know Bruce? Yeah. Rewired, rehired, go Bruce.
Yes, definitely.
Anyway, Bruce Bennett was a jailer at the time, and he was one of the guys running Glocks. At the time, he was semi-sponsored by Aerotech.
All right.
And pretty good. Yeah. So he and I were doing it out a lot.
Yeah.
And Bruce decided he was going to shoot open. So there were no open parts for Glocks back in the day.
Certainly not.
So the first base pad we made was 170 millimeter plus 8 extension for the Glock 22.
Right.
So big aluminum.
That was your first base pad.
That was my first base pad.
First base pad was the long one. Gotcha. And we have that to show off here.
That's actually one for the M&P, but it's close enough.
Close enough. So there's a extension. This is a plus
8.
8
in 40.
In 40, right. Plus 8 in 40. If it was 9, it's plus 10, right?
Yep.
So you take your standard length. This is a Glock 17/22 magazine. Now you're got that long base on there. So that gets you up to 170 millimeter.
Correct.
Which is the maximum magazine length for USPSA in open division. So that's one of the only limits. It's probably just about the only limit in the open division is your magazine length.
Yeah,
and then you've got
multiple optics. Or
everything's got to be within 2 inches of your belt, but otherwise, that's like the only restriction I can think of off the top of my head.
Mike Voigt said if you can roll it to the line,
exactly,
you can
drag it up there and you can shoot it.
Yeah.
So
37 caliber or larger, good to go.
That's right. Yeah, you get the minimum diameter of the bullet too. Yeah. So you make the base pad out of what was the material?
Originally, it was aluminum.
Okay.
Yeah, it was very square aluminum blocks with a machined aluminum backplate on it.
Okay.
And the problem with the aluminum we soon discovered is the aluminum is hard enough versus the plastic magazine to slowly eat the magazine.
Okay.
And that's one of the problems when you see aluminum being used with the Glock anywhere.
Okay.
Is it will put wear on the magazine. Same with brass. And with the brass, you have to kind of accept that because there's no way around it. But that's why almost all of my Glock parts are actually made out of Delrin.
Right.
Which is a really high speed machinable
really
aerospace polymer.
Dimensionally stable.
Yeah, homopolymer. I have to custom order it every time I order it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Everybody wants to sell me a seal, which is a similar polymer, but it's a copolymer with not quite so good thin wall strength. Okay. So I'm forever saying, no, I need real. I always ask, hi, I need this 1.5 Delrin in sheets.
Right.
I'm looking for a 2 foot by 4 foot, 1.5 Delrin 150 black. Has it got to be Delrin? Yeah. You sure? I got a seal in this Delrin? No,
sure?
It's got to be.
That's really expensive, And how expensive is Delrin these days?
It's a multiple of the price of aluminum.
Right.
I forget what it is, but it's a
3-4 times the price of aluminum. You get plastic.
Yeah, you get nice machinable plastic.
Right. Yeah, but it's good stuff. So cool. So and from there. Branched out into...
Taylor Freelance has always been a labor... Sorry, I'm interrupting.
No, go for it.
Taylor Freelance has always been a labor of love of mine.
Yeah.
And so I was working, working for USPSA back then, and doing the magazine stuff. I would see little things that I needed for my guns or that other people needed for their guns, and I would just kind of get spun up and start making the project. I got to make this work. Like, cool. Most of us that shoot USPSA are gearheads at some level.
Yep.
And I was just right in there with everybody else, but with very few mechanical skills. So I'd go in and figure something out, and then take it to somebody that knew what they were doing. Okay. Put Humpty Dumpty together, and we would make a part.
Gotcha.
Whether or not it made money was kind of secondary.
Oh, all right.
So, yeah, it's been great fun.
At least there's a flow of parts on the market. If you can dream it up, if you need it.
Yeah, I'm a special projects guy. If you've got something interesting, come talk to me.
Right.
And that actually has worked out really well for us in different ways. I've tended to stay away from the big market items, the 2011s and this kinds of stuff, because there's 50 people that make parts for 2011s.
There's already a lot of competition in that market.
Yeah, and it's not my gig anyway.
Okay.
I was a Glock guy, so I made Glock parts.
Right. Yeah, if you didn't already know, Robin's a Glock head, right?
Oh yes, very much so. Very much so. I wrote a book about it, the whole thing. But we've taken the opportunity to go after the niche market stuff, because I'm probably not going to displace Graham's engineering anytime soon. Nor would I want to. Bevan's a great guy.
Right.
So instead, I've catered to. I was one of the first guys to jump on the Smith & Wesson M&P.
Okay.
And so now we have a variety of parts for the M&P that are actually very popular and well accepted in the market.
Good.
Glock, same way. We were the first people to produce significant parts for the Glock, or if not the first, pretty close to it. And that's worked out pretty well for us on our scale. Well, earlier this year I went full-time, so now we're starting to go, I went full-time with Taylor Freelance.
Right.
So now I'm starting to pursue those things more actively and looking at some of the larger market stuff and just generally investing in it seriously instead of just doing it as a hobby.
As a hobby. Okay, great.
What came out of that and that reputation we have for working on small projects is I got a phone call from the Border Patrol Special Operations Group in San Antonio.
In San Antonio, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, me in Bellingham, Washington, getting a call from those guys. Well, the BORTAC guys have recently adopted the HKP-30L.
All right.
Which is a gun I don't have much experience with.
But we've got a couple of guys locally.
But we have a couple guys locally that are really into that, and they had already spoken to me about, would you make me a base pad for this?
Sure.
And I said, nah. But when the Border Patrol calls, that changes the level of enthusiasm, you know?
Sure. I mean, not only for the potential volume, and I don't know what the volume of product was.
It's not very high. They're a small group.
Okay. But it's that service to the country kind of thing. It's like, hey, you know, the government special operations guys are calling me for some product. I want to satisfy these guys.
Yeah, I'm there.
So did you make them? We're going to show off a. Where is it on this table?
Sure.
There it is.
Okay, here we go. First off, we got the HKP-30.
Show the gun.
For those of you that haven't seen one before, this is very similar to what's used by the Border Patrol and Customs and Border Enforcement guys nationwide. It's actually very slightly longer. It's kind of, those of you that haven't shot HKs recently, it's similar to an HK USP as far as the control layout and that kind of stuff. Very much ambidextrous, has the push down mag levers.
Right, the levers like this.
Push down instead of in.
Instead of in, right.
So, which is kind of cool. You get a really nice positive mag ejection out of it. This is being a slightly larger version of the P2000 or an improved version of the P2000. The extension we made for it will work on the P2000, but it's kind of like sticking a factory length. It looks like you stuck a factory length Glock 17 magazine into a Glock 19. There's a little bit of a gap left.
You got a gap, all right, which I don't think is a big deal.
You know, but yeah, that's it. We picked up our HKP-30L extensions from the finishers Friday. This is Saturday, so yeah, that was yesterday.
So stuff that brand new.
So that's about as new as it gets.
Right, for sure.
The HKP-30, as in its stock format, holds 15 rounds of 9mm or 13 rounds of 40. With this extension on it, it takes us out to 20 rounds of 9mm and 18 rounds of 40.
Okay.
Plus 5 in both cases.
Great.
So as you can imagine, for the BORTAC guys in San Antonio, they're pretty excited about that.
Now, what was the spec for Border Patrol?
Border Patrol wanted 5 rounds.
They wanted 5 rounds. Yep. And so does this make USPSA length?
Yes,
it does. Excellent. And we can show you that. This is a magazine gauge if you guys have never seen one. You've heard about these limits of the magazine length, and this is how you measure it. This is the official gauge made by EGW, and for 140 you lay it in on this side. It's got a rest, you know, it's got a rest. There's a little pad here, there's a little pad here, and it's got to fit in there, and you've got 1.5 millimeters to go, maybe. I don't know, maybe about 1 millimeter to go. So
which is intentional.
So this is right about 140 millimeter in length. So great. So it fits the gauge. It's legal for USPSA limited division,
and just as importantly, it's legal for all the big 3-gun events as well. The 3-gun nation rules use the same.
Oh, they do. Okay, and so they limit everybody to 140, or just the limited guys? And
the tactical guys.
So if you're open, you can still go 170
in 3-gun? 170, but
Gotcha.
the biggest division in 3-gun is tactical.
Gotcha.
TAC optics specifically. And the TAC optics guys are generally running a 9mm, like a limited gun of some sort.
Sure.
Although they go with a lot of Glocks and M&Ps for reasons to do with not having to do safeties.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
So that is a big deal to them.
That's very cool. That's very cool.
We've actually had some interest from the people at HK.
Okay.
For their pro team guys.
Nice. Very cool. So, and if you guys haven't seen, various companies make extensions, and they have various ways of attaching that extension and locking it in place. Taylor Freelance on the back side has a retainer plate. Is that what you call it?
Yeah, we call it the Fort Knox retainer.
A Fort Knox retainer, and it's you got 2 cap head hex screws that just attach it on there. There's rails machined lengthwise, so the magazine slips in from the back. You put this cap on there, and it is not coming off.
That's one of the reasons Border Patrol was so interested in having us make the plate.
Because it's so, I mean...
You get it off, you broke something.
It ain't coming off. It is not coming off, so... Yeah.
One of their particular requirements included, because after we sent them the prototype, complete with retaining plate, which I just threw on the floor. But anyway, that's one of the prototypes we sent to them, and one of their requirements was that the Border Special, as we call it, have anti-vibration screws in it. And a scalloped locking plate. So there's a couple of little details on here
it's trimmed,
that aren't obvious and aren't part of the normal kit. There are a lot of pistols out there, but the HKs in particular, where the magazine, how do I show this on TV? Where the magazine is surrounded by the frame. And I'm going to hold this up really close so you can see it. When you drop the magazine in, the magazine kind of disappears behind this bump in the frame, and the same up here in the front,
right?
Which makes it a little tough to get an external retaining device in there with the magazine. So when we went to do theirs, our retaining plate would normally hit right about now, right? Or it's going to hit the edge of the thing. This is a Smith & Wesson magazine, so it's not going to fit. But you can see where the plate here is going to impinging,
jam itself in there, right?
Yeah. So we go to the HK part, which is here somewhere. What did I do with my HK piece? We've lost it.
There's over there.
Okay, there we go.
Right.
So we go to the HK piece. It's a slightly shorter magazine, of course, but it also has that scalloped piece to slide by there and actually lock in place the way you'd like it to. So it actually has some tolerance, and
it'll still drop
come
free.
out. Yep.
Exactly. That's important.
Yep.
So cool.
Yeah. So that's great fun. Those are literally shipping right now. My wife is at home today, filling envelopes for me.
Filling orders.
Filling orders.
Cool. Okay, so we're going to talk about now the other products and categories and why, what are we trying to solve here with all these different products that you've got? Because there's so much. There's so many products that we've got to show you guys. So I mean, basically we talked about the plus 10 in 9mm. That gets you into USPSA open. Or if you're shooting a 40, this will give you plus 8, right?
Correct.
If with a standard Glock 22 mag. Now, we'll start off with this one right here. You guys might be familiar with Glock started making these 22 round 22 mags, Glock 22 mags, Model 22, the 40 caliber.
Yeah.
And it's 160 some odd millimeters. And I've heard stories. Do you know why they made the magazine?
Not off the top of my head.
I don't either.
My theory is that it's actually for shieldmen, because I get phone calls from SWAT shieldmen.
Okay.
From a couple, once or twice a year, I'll have somebody.
I heard it was for law enforcement, that they had certain magazine pouches and they wanted to maximize the magazine that would fit in the magazine pouches and the vest or whatever they've already got. So Robin makes a short extension. This is a plus 3 in 40, giving you 25 rounds. And now we're at 170 millimeters. And again, I mean, we could show you on the magazine gauge, but there it is right there, 170 millimeter, 171.25 millimeter exactly. And you're open legal if you're like me and you want to shoot 40 open. So that's really cool. After I got that magazine, I immediately went to Robin's site and said, perfect. He's already got exactly what I was going to ask for. So there must have been, because those mags have been out for, I don't know, at least a year
and a half or something like that.
Yeah, so there must have been people already asking before me. I just got one a month ago or something like that.
Yeah, like I said earlier, we do a lot of special project stuff. And the number of guys that shoot 40 open Glocks,
I know.
Not very many people.
I know there's not many of it, but I did start a very popular thread on Brian Enos about shooting 40 open. I think we're, I don't know, tens of thousands of views and 12, 13, 14 pages deep now, people weighing in on their experience of 40 open, but I'll digress. So
we do all kinds of stuff like that. I mean, that's what I call,
that's great.
It's kind of a pasta project where you wad up the pasta, throw it at the wall, see if it sticks.
Right, exactly.
The first one of those we did was, I got calls from people with CX4 carbines in 45.
Okay. Yeah.
The CX4 Carbine 45 is a great gun.
Sure.
With a stupid short magazine in it.
Yes.
Who builds a carbine with an 8-round magazine? I mean, that's silly.
I know exactly what you mean. Yeah, and it's a neat little carbine.
It's a great gun.
Yeah.
So people would call me saying, help me. And so we decided to build for them because we got 6 or 8 of these guys were calling me, hassling me about this. Okay, we'll make you something.
Cool.
And we've been making CX4 Carbine base pads ever since.
Oh, nice.
We don't sell a whole lot of them, but we sell a steady trickle of
But when somebody needs
plus 2
one,
extensions for CX4 45 carbines.
Right on. Okay, so we've got our limited legal base pads. These are your standard 17 or Glock 22 mags. Plus, what is it? Plus 5 and 40?
6 and 9 millimeter.
6 and 9 millimeter. There you go.
And
So
there's a caveat that goes with that.
okay.
Back in the day, there used to be one magazine. You had which is actually this one, the non-drop free.
Okay.
It wasn't even marked 9 millimeter.
The Gen 1 mag.
The Gen 1 mag.
With the U-shape.
With the U-shape
right
cut
here
out
in the
around
back.
the primer.
That means it's Gen 1. So
that was mag number 1. And then you had the transitional mag, which was you cut out with a slightly different follower, and then with a slightly different locking base pad. As opposed to the non-locking base pad.
There's been so many.
Oh, yeah. And now there's like 8 different major mag body variations,
exactly.
10 different followers per caliber.
Right.
There's slight variations within each subtype. And, it's horrible. So you should get 8 rounds and you should get 10 rounds of 9 millimeter. You might get 11, depending on whether you got a Monday or a Friday magazine, or you might get 9.
Okay.
So
if you're shooting limited though, Robin's got base pads for it. Just make sure you tell them which kind you got. If you got a Gen 3 or a Gen 4,
at this point you don't have to tell me.
Okay.
You used to have to tell me, but there's the non-drops now are pre-Clinton administration. So they've pretty well dropped out of the market.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha. And then we've talked about Delrin, we've talked about aluminum.
Brass. That's half-hard machinable brass.
Okay, and that really not only gets the weight, again, back and down while you're shooting, but when you hit that button, gravity just rips that sucker right out. There's almost no chance that's going to stay in the gun, and you have to strip it out manually. So
we got some 3-gun guys that really like those.
Excellent.
Some guys that really like those, particularly the ones that are shooting 40s that are, because the 40 is a light gun anyway. And so the more weight you can add to it, it gets it more in that happy balance, more where the 2011s are at.
Now,
the fun thing we like to talk about these guys is normally when you drop a magazine, it falls towards the couple of bullets that are left, and it will land sideways or nose down.
Right.
When you drop one of these, we call it push button move foot, because these things are coming down hard, and they'll actually crater. They'll actually crater into the sand and be standing there like that at the custer.
Excellent.
So
cool. All right. So then, what else are we looking at here? These add no capacity.
Add no capacity, but they're production legal.
They're production legal.
Yeah, we built those specifically for the production guys that were trying to gain a little bit of weight wherever they could.
Gotcha.
This one's just to be pretty. We call it the bling base pad.
The bling base pad, aluminum Glock base pad. It's it's
factory replacement.
It looks, I was going to say, it's about the same dimensions as the factory, right? And same goes here, same dimensions.
But the bling brass,
but you get some weight.
Yeah, it gives you an ounce worth of weight.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and you're only allowed 2 ounces.
Exactly. So you're only allowed 2 ounces over factory weight, which, boy, I don't know, you start adding some of the bigger sights and steel guide rods.
Everybody's going to creep right up to it.
Yeah,
but that's one of the places where you can get a little weight where you want it and help get that magazine out of the gun.
Exactly.
And it looks cool.
It looks cool, and it's a way to tell yours apart from
everybody else's.
Is there more than 4 guys shooting Glocks these days? I don't know. Yeah. Maybe there's a few more than that.
and they've got a pretty good pedigree now. These where'd my 100? These were used by Katie Harris to win the ladies 3-gun title a couple different times.
Cool.
At least once. I should be careful about saying more than once, but I know she's done it at least once. These were used by Robert Vogel to win the Limited 10 national title.
Right.
And I think they've been used to win the production title. I'm not 100% on that one.
And Bob Vogel's also using the Seattle Slug, is that right?
Yep. He's one of the guys that uses a Seattle Slug full-time in competition.
Right, yeah, you see these guys winning matches, and they don't have the big magwell that's 6 inches around, right? Yep. They can hit a reload.
Vogel in particular.
He can hit a reload, believe me.
And one of the reasons he likes that extension is because it's like the only magwell on the market that you can use factory mags with.
Right.
If you took a normal one, you took a Dawson or something that are full circle magwells, and you try to put this mag in there, you're doing this to try to shove it up into
seat it in there if it will seat.
And the worst part, as those of you that have been in the game a long time will remember, Armando Valdez Armando was kind of the original sponsored pro for Glock.
Okay.
And Armando had gone to shooting with a magwell because he really liked how that worked. And he had base pads that came up just flat with the bottom of the magwell. And he kept it until the day the gun jammed. And when the gun jammed, he had to strip the magazine out. And so he's standing there on the clock trying to get his fingers up inside.
Or down into the ejection port, pushing it out.
Away with the magwell. And,
Goodbye. Yeah.
So.
Cool.
Yeah. So anyway, we do all kinds of stuff like that.
Okay.
There's those.
And it's not just Glock, right?
Not just Glock.
What else we got?
This one is for the Smith & Wesson M&P. This is what we call the Edwards 451.
Yeah.
Because
I saw that on your website.
Yeah. It was suggested by Ralph. He actually goes by Lynn Edwards. That's a part to get away from having to put a Barney bullet into an M&P 45. If you shoot IDPA, you're always starting at division capacity,
right?
Which is 10 and 1 in the barrel,
right?
10 and 1 in the tube,
right?
Well, the M&P only takes 10 rounds. The M&P 45 is a 10-round mag. End of story. So that means you go on so you say load make ready. You load the load, rack it out, take the thing back out again, put a hot gun in your holster. Right. Yeah, do what's called loading a Barney bullet.
Right.
Well, that's a +1 to get away from loading the Barney bullet.
Okay. Cool.
And the benefit of it, in addition to getting away from the Barney bullet, is you get away from that pronounced kind of hook-shaped base pad that Smith & Wesson has standard, which everybody at some point in their life is going to hooks and loses out of their mag pouches.
Yeah.
You get away from that, so you get a more conventionally shaped one, and it's longer. So you get more positive seat, and you get a lot of little benefits. But the main thing is to get away from the Barney bullet.
Sure. Yeah, just load it, holster it, and you're good to go. Not waste 30 seconds trying to stuff one extra round back in there, because you have to.
We made a similar base pad for the 9mm version of the M&P for Phil Strader.
Okay.
Actually, he was for Phil and the guys that were going to the U.S. IPSC Nationals.
Okay.
It turns out base pads are a regulated part internationally because it's a gun part.
Okay.
You can't buy base pads from overseas easily and have them shipped to the United States. Conversely, you can't easily buy base pads from the U.S. and ship them anywhere else.
Huh. Okay.
So Phil and the guys were going to the U.S. IPSC Nationals and eventually onto the World Shoot. They were shooting M&Ps. And the standard...
Shooting production?
No, standard.
Shooting standard with an M&P, okay. Mm-hmm. All right.
And shooting standard, it's 129.5 millimeters flat.
It's got to fit the box.
It's got to fit their box, and that works out to about 129.5-ish.
Okay.
So it's halfway between a flat base pad and a 140 millimeter base pad.
Right.
So we made base pads for Phil.
Nice.
To say, here you go, Phil. You go ye forth and conquer. And he did, as usual.
Nice.
But and so now we make the IPSC legal base pad for the M&P.
Okay.
That has all the other characteristics of 140 millimeter base pads, but it fits in the box and it does all those things that are required for IPSC.
Okay. What about Glock in IPSC? Is there anything you can add, or is it pretty much maximize the box as is?
There is some room you can add. There is some room you can add there.
Is it worth it?
Good question.
Is it even one round?
Good question.
Is it one round or is it just half a round?
I haven't looked,
at that
frankly,
point?
I haven't looked at it because Ralph Arredondo got there ahead of me.
Okay.
And Ralph is a good guy. He makes great parts generally. So why would I attempt to compete for this little tiny slice of the market when Ralph has already got it set up?
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
All right. So what else you want to show off here, Robin? What's this one here?
Oh yeah, this one. I forgot about this guy. Those of you that have been in the sport a long time, I find myself saying that a lot. 20 years of doing this, I'll do that to you. May remember a division called Practical Carry. Practical Carry never actually made official division status, but it was kind of a movement that predated Limited 10. We built this base pad with the idea that Practical Carry would become a big deal. Instead, we got Limited 10. And this is intended to go on a 10 round. I don't know if you can see it. That's actually a 10 rounder for the Glock. And
so this is mid-90s?
Yeah.
Okay. Yep.
So all it does is add weight and length. Okay. It's about the size of an original Factory Plus 2.
Weight and length, okay.
But again, we're back to push button move foot.
And it's a +0 capacity?
+0. It doesn't give you any extra capacity. It's just a big chunk of brass.
Okay. Interesting.
So, yeah.
Huh. It's cool to see. I mean, you can tell a history of the sport, based on
looking at the stuff I've done.
Based on what stuff is around, what was made, and things and like that.
Why we made it, yeah.
Right. All right. Well, what else? I mean, we got
such a pile of stuff. We got we got
as we've
started
here,
to branch out. You remember my talking about the Vortac guys?
Yes.
Yeah. It turns out HK today is kind of like Glock was 10 years ago. There are a few guys that run HKs, and that's about it.
Okay.
And they all know who each other is,
Right.
and they all communicate. And they have, there's the HK Pro forum and this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So the HK guys all talk to each other, and they're very excited about their HKs.
Sure.
But kind of like the Glock guys back in the day, nobody respects the HKs. Oh, that's cute, you got an HK. Look, you brought a Volvo to a Chevy race.
Right.
It's the same sort of attitude going on. So I'm very happy to step up and help those guys out. So we got the base pad, which for the Border Patrol and for them. The next thing out of the gate, per the request of the BORTAC guys, is a mag well. So we'll be doing that for them here very shortly.
Okay. And there's no backstrap channel for a Seattle Slug?
No, it's a whole different system.
But it's going to be okay.
It's a whole different system because this thing is all based off of roll pins.
Yes.
If you punch out that roll pin,
removable
that comes off. The side panels come off this way. It's a whole different architecture.
Yep.
And their lanyard loophole system is different as well.
Yep.
Instead of being just a hole in the back, the way the Glock is, these guys use a cross pin. There's a cross pin that goes across there. And so you can attach a lanyard to that.
You could slip the pin out, put a lanyard through there, put the pin back in.
And we're gonna use that as an attachment point for the magwell.
Yeah, nice.
So
okay, cool.
That's coming down the road.
Yeah.
A little sooner, I hope, down the road will be one for the Ruger Mark III. This is a Ruger Mark III Hunter 2245, which does a pretty good job of emulating a 1911 as far as grip angle goes. That was the whole point behind doing this Delrin lower. It's probably not Delrin,
or
close to polymer lower.
Yeah.
It actually has, those are real 1911 base pads. Or
grip scales.
Base pads.
Yeah.
Thank you. Real 1911 grip scales. I've actually taken them on and off my various 1911s, playing around with different designs. So we're producing a magwell that'll work for the Ruger and give you even better emulation of your race guns.
Right, good training tool.
This is a slightly modified Hawktech Arms base pad for the Ruger. Let's see, probably not the easiest thing to see with all that distraction in the picture, but it's got a little plunger right here. I don't know if you can see that or not.
Yeah. But
it's a spring-loaded plunger that's pretty much a direct copy of the Volquartsen system for ejecting mag. They call it a mag ejector, I think.
Okay.
So I've rounded it off in various ways to get along with my prototype magwell. But the long and the short of it is you can insert that into the gun, the plunger spring loads, and then it'll actually spit it out, which for a Ruger, those of you that have them know this is a big deal. Because where the Glocks used to hold on to their magwells, hold on to their magazines, the Rugers are horrible for that. You're pretty much stripping mags all the time. So between having an actual magwell and a Hawktech or somebody similar's spring-loaded base pad, you get a whole different gun. It makes an emergency reload while you're shooting Steel Challenge a realistic possibility.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And then, like you said, if you're shooting a single stack, it's a great training tool. It's a great analog to your 45 or your 1911 anyway. So
a Kimber would be much better. Those that are built to be 1911s would be better, but they're usually $1,000.
Right. So. Okay, so we covered the gamut. I mean,
I'm sure there's something I'm missing. Yeah.
Want to talk about the book?
Yeah, sure.
All right. So where did the book start off?
The book started off back in the culture of Glocks, like I've been talking about here for the last while.
Right.
We all knew who each other was. We kind of had each other's phone numbers half the time.
And this is kind of before the internet was real big, right? And you had to compile tips and tricks and whatever on notebook paper, right?
So I'm the guy that makes the magwell, at least one of the mag guides that's out there, and I'm the guy that makes the base pads.
Yeah.
So between the magwell and the base pads, I got a lot of phone calls from guys that were trying to run Glocks. What do you do? What do you use this? Do you use that?
Yeah, right.
And it was always the same questions. It was always, how do I get my mags to drop out? What do I do with my trigger? What do you like for sights? All that same
springs.
Stuff. Springs. It was the same question. Springs actually didn't come till later because there weren't any springs available.
Okay.
It was all
makes sense.
There was no question about whether you're using the factory springs. That was the only spring you could get.
Okay.
So with very few exceptions. What do you think? We were all hung up on. Do you like the Hart's mercury-filled recoil reducer?
Oh yes, I remember those. Yeah.
That kinds of stuff.
Right.
Steel guide rod or not? Cha-cha-cha. So I was always answering the same questions. And at the same time, I'm working for Frontsight Magazine and doing a little bit of magazine article writing.
Right.
So basically, I took a lot of those questions that people give me. I've ended up writing articles about them for different people and accumulating a lot of information about the Glock.
Yeah.
And so I got laid off by, actually I was working for Fishing and Hunting News at the time.
Okay.
Before I went to work for USPSA, I worked for Fishing and Hunting News for some years. And while I was there, accumulated a bunch of that stuff, got laid off by Fishing and Hunting News, and they shut down my edition. And here I am unemployed. So I took all of that and I made a book out of it.
Nice.
And condensed it all, used it as a project. I was learning PageMaker at the time, so I put it all together in PageMaker and published it. And I think that was 98 when we did the first edition.
All right.
Black and white, all this kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
Then I ended up going to work for USPSA and worked for them for some years, doing the same thing, gathering information, still competing all the time.
Right.
And we produced the second edition, which looks like this. And we blew it out quite a bit from, it was 180 pages black and white, and now it's color cover, and I think 240. Yeah, 248.
Okay.
But included all that stuff, including what this is not my writing I'm talking about, including the best discussion of why Glocks blow up with lead bullets that I've ever seen anywhere.
Oh, great. Yeah, I don't know that much about it. I know it's rumored, just not rumored, but recommended by Glock. Don't do it.
Don't do that.
Don't use lead in your Glock barrel.
Well, that whole thing, and I'll take a minute here to kind of explain that one. I was among the crew that said, "What's the big deal with the lead bullets?" Because I had shot lead bullets for years, 175 grain lead through my old 40 back in the day, 147 grade cast flat points through my 9s. Won my first Glock match shooting that.
Okay.
What's the big deal? Clean your gun is fine.
All right.
There is an element to say, yeah, you can do that as long as you clean your gun religiously and you know your particular gun well. The trick is that when Glocks lead, they don't lead like other guns do. The barrel in a Glock is polygon, as most people know, as opposed to a cut rifle barrel.
As opposed to cut rifling.
A cut rifle barrel, as a general rule, will lead up like anything else, but it will reach an equilibrium point where it will.
You might be depositing, but you're also
scraping off as much.
Scraping,
you scrape a little, leave a little, scrape a little, leave a little.
Sure.
The Glocks don't do that. The Glocks just leave a little, and they don't scrape much off. So as that goes,
because of the way that they deform the bullet.
Yeah. A cut rifle barrel essentially incisors into the bullet. I mean, it obturates and fills all the available space. Yeah. But what's going on in very broad brush terms is that it has rifling that cuts into pieces of the bullet all the way going around to spin it. The Glock barrel is shaped like a stop sign. So instead of mobilizing little pieces of the bullet, it mobilizes the entire surface of the bullet.
Right.
And essentially
reforms the bullet.
It resizes the bullet and it kind of squeezes out control ridges of sorts or as it goes down the barrel. So it's actually smaller than a normal cut rifle barrel. The actual available area, according to Mark anyway, is smaller. And the effect of all of that mushing and squishing is you get a lot more shearing effect. And it really will reach a place where you'll leave more and more and more and more and more until the gun fails.
Until it's just,
Darn near did it to myself.
Okay.
Now, I had just won a Glock 24 prior to the limited nationals in like 96. Threw my same loads that I'd been using in my Glock 22 in it. Shot 50 rounds or 60 rounds. Okay, great. I'll go shoot a match with this. Dang near blew the thing up because it just continuously got worse. And I started looking down. Thankfully, I looked down and started picking up some of my brass, and I've got smoking holes in my primers instead of normal behavior.
Wow.
Mark actually blew one up over the chronograph and was doing pressure barrel testing and everything. I went, that's odd. Why is my pressure going up? And literally blew the gun up.
Wow.
Should have known better. Eventually, Mark was hired by an attorney or group of attorneys, don't remember which, to sue Glock, to do some research in an effort to sue Glock for defective barrels. And as a result of Mark's research, they dropped the suit. Because Mark was able to demonstrate if you do this and this and this, yes, the gun will fail exactly the way Glock said it would. Don't go here.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Read the book. It'll give you all the details.
Got all that and more in the Glock in competition. So, yeah, cool. Okay, so we want to thank Robin for coming out. Robin,
so welcome, Larry.
Please give out your website. We want people to find you out there.
Yeah, we're pretty easy to find. Yep. It's www.taylorfreelance.com.
Taylorfreelance.com. And we have a trivia question this week. And as usual, designed to drive traffic to the website. So check out taylorfreelance.com. Question is what? You can ask the question, Robin.
How many base pads do we make for the Glock out of brass?
Okay. How many unique base pads does Taylor Freelance offer for the Glock made out of brass? Check it out on the website. Go to the little store.
Should all be on the same page.
It should all be on all on one page. There's and there's a 9 and a 40 version. Count them both, right? Or sorry, not 940. 9 version and a 45 version. You got the 940. 357.
You're gonna query the deal here. You're gonna tick them off and tell them anybody actually got it.
All right. So check out the website. Please send us the answer to that trivia question at powerfactorshow@gmail.com. And if you have any other questions for us, any questions for Robin, just send it to our email address, powerfactorshow@gmail.com. We'll make sure that we get those answered. Like us on Facebook, please, facebook.com/powerfactorshow, and see us at powerfactorshow.com. If you like what you see, if you appreciate the education that we give you and introduce you to the sports and the products and everything, hit the donate button, and we'd appreciate that. The show's free. The show's always going to be free, but we would appreciate your donations. And thanks a lot for watching, and we'll see you next week.